That's a question. I think that's $1 million question. How can AI truly, meaningfully help these businesses?
Hello and welcome everyone to another special episode of the Auto Tech Show back at the SEMA Automotive Trade Show in Las Vegas, Nevada. As you can see behind me, it's another great day at the show with plenty of action going on. And speaking of plenty of action, today's episode is all about how AI is driving innovation for both tire health monitoring and predictive maintenance. Two fundamental variables in the tire market today, and ones that can have a significant impact on your tire business. Joining us today is Fernando Herrera, the CEO of Tirebase, a leader in providing innovative tire software solutions across the country. With over 13 years of experience in the tire industry, Fernando has developed a deep knowledge of tire products, brands, and markets, and is passionate about empowering independent tire dealers. He's also a popular YouTuber with over 13,000 subscribers, sharing valuable insights on tire sales strategies and industry tips. Certified by major manufacturers like Falcon and Goodyear, Fernando combines hands-on experience and expertise with a commitment to helping dealers succeed in the digital age. Fernando, we're finally having this talk. Our listeners will know that we touched base at the show last year for a couple questions. It's a busy week for you. I know that your schedule is literally back to back to back, but I appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for sitting down.
No. Thank you for having me, man. I know, the schedule during SEMA, I mean, we all know it's pretty hectic, especially because I have a booth here and it's literally meeting after meeting. But this is actually what I like to do. I mean, since last year we spoke, I really wanted to, hopefully sit down more in a more relaxed environment. You got a very nice setup, like I said, off camera, man. So I'm very happy to have.
It's a bit hectic on the show floor for sure. And then there's people and things and conversations and people waiting.
Interruptions nonstop.
This is to remove the interruption. So I'm glad I can get you out here to have this talk. And you're right. The view is pretty fun to watch what's going on down on the show floor here at the West Hall. So let's get straight into it and talk about how AI has been evolving in the recent years. We've seen tons of solutions come to market. Everyone's leveraging this new power of AI, and it's in everyone's face. How is it from the role that it plays in tire health and with passenger vehicles? Can you break down your insights on those two elements within AI and how you're seeing it develop?
I think, and again, I'm just gonna. I don't know if my answers are right or wrong, but this is what I think. I think that AI is definitely helping us see things that previously we couldn't see, or seeing things faster than what we, normal speed, right? And so I think I saw this other company that they have these tire sensors, and I've seen some manufacturers actually start engaging in tire sensors. And I think there's very little data that we have currently when it comes to tires. And so as we start gathering that data, I think we're going to be able to see perhaps a little more clear how AI can take a role. Obviously, I mean, this is, I'm talking with you, a part of Anyline, and I know you guys play a big role in that as well. But I think step one, in my point of view, is collecting that data, ensuring that we're seeing that data, and then maybe seeing how that could ultimately help consumer. I envision something where, consumers could be immediately notified that, hey, your tires, based on this wear, there's this chance of probability that this might happen, or hey, it's time to do this type of maintenance, or more like preventative maintenance, replacement, things like that. For shop owners, for fleet managers, that's extremely valuable as well, especially when you have 1,000 vehicles. At the end of the day, for businesses, it's all about efficiency. And
why do you think and it's been a conversation that's come up in a few past episodes, and I think about it, why do you think tires have such limited data coming in? We see so much with the vehicle itself. Why is the piece that connects us to the road seemingly this last element?
I mean, if you think about it, tire is just raw material, man. There's really no tech. I mean, it would be nice. That's where like innovation comes in, man. Tire, I would argue the tire hasn't really been changed in the last 100 years.
Totally.
It's the same.
As its core function and core build.
Same technology, same, maybe they make them wider, but there's really no electronic components that have been added to it. And so I think we're kind of slowly seeing, again, some companies embrace that. But I think it's going to require a much more bigger radical approach, whether the data is captured at, service maintenance areas like, auto repair shops, or again through sensors. But I think it all comes down because tires are just rubber and steel. And until someone has the time and the funds to go and say, hey, let's rebuild a tire to make it a smart tire or Internet of Things tire, then that's when we're going to be able to collect a lot more meaningful data. But again, it's hard. I mean, you and I are focused on other projects. Everyone's focused on their own thing. And the big corporations, with all due respect, they sometimes don't have the drive to pursue that innovation.
Yeah, and everyone has their own game that they're kind of playing with it as well. You mentioned the TPMS as an example of someone that's maybe leveraging that AI side a little more. Are there other examples of tech that you've seen or that you've spoken with other industry folks? I know you have a lot of conversations. Are there other specific pieces of technology that you're excited to see being leveraged a little bit more with tires?
Actually, you touch a very important point, at least for me. So the smart sensors are different than the TPMS sensors. I had not thought about them as the smart sensors are, I think it's like a patch. You put a little sensor and it reads, data from the tire. But I recently heard that some TPMS companies are actually wanting to do that. And I think that could be a lot more scalable because now you just replace, it's something a lot more scalable and high demand. The other one, you would have to remake tires or put a little plug on each tire. And I think that's a little harder to implement. A TPMS sensor is actually a very easy install. Any other ways? I don't know. It would have to be like, and this is just me thinking, but it would have to be a collective network of people or shops or businesses or government, offices just collecting data, through DOT or specific data along the streets. But again, it's still very hard for me, at least, to vision how that can come to be.
Yeah, I think it really becomes leveraging all that data that you have access to and then putting it to work in the best way possible, and then using AI, as we're speaking about here, to maybe have a bit more access to that. And that kind of comes on to that predictive maintenance side. I know you touched on that, especially when we look at passenger vehicles. There's so much that can be done. There's a big gap, I think, on the predictive side because shops aren't leveraging everything as they possibly could up to now. When we look at the replacement and repair side of passenger vehicles, do you see AI giving more of a helping hand with that side of it, giving shops and giving service centers and dealers access to just more information and more predictive analytics?
And this is actually a question I've asked myself a lot. I mean, we develop software solutions. We primarily focus on the independent small, dealers or tire dealers. And I think that's a question. I think that's $1 million question. How can AI truly, meaningfully help these businesses? There's ways we're starting to see, like in my experience, I'm starting to see AI play a big role in phone conversations with clients.
Okay.
Summarizing calls, getting consumer sentiment, customers' concerns. One part is collecting the data. Then the second problem after collecting the data is going to be actually analyzing and visualizing the data. I've seen a lot of companies that have tons of data. They have way more data, and then they go and then they go like, I don't know what to do with this data, man. It's way too much. And so I think that's where AI can truly play a role. But at this point, like phone conversations is one of them where we're starting to see, hey, we have thousands of calls coming in. We're not listening to every call. AI could definitely help us in that aspect. With maintenance, again, if we're doing vehicle inspections and suddenly we're analyzing and saving all this data, DOT scanning threads, tire treads, things like that, then suddenly I think, I think maybe something similar to like Siri, maybe perhaps, where you could, shop owner could simply ask, hey, what's the probability of this tire selling over this one? Or, and giving more data-backed
in a digestible way.
Correct, yeah. But again, it's still very, I don't think any company out there has really nailed down the true solution AI could provide at this time. It's just too early because, again, primarily, one, we don't know which data to use, and
there's so much, right?
Yeah, the most meaningful one for me so far has been the phone conversations. Like that's actually meaningful. That puts a number. That puts immediate. Like again, if I'm servicing 1,000 shops, 1,000 clients every day, I can immediately know of those 1,000, how many of them are happy, how many of them call for a quote, how many of them are looking for tires or just service. That's very meaningful. But when it comes to service or maintenance or health, again, I'd still go back to, we're back in the collecting data phase.
Yeah.
That's how
And
I
how
feel.
to collect it most efficiently.
Correct. Exactly. That's a great question. Yeah. Because, we could have people right here writing down DOTs all day long, but that's probably not going to be the most efficient method.
Especially when we see now, and it's still a topic here, and it was a big topic last year, the staffing gap. They don't have the shop technicians to do all of that. And if you have a guy going around collecting all the vehicle data points manually, that's a massive waste of time.
No. And I mean, like I said, I come from retail background. I've been in that position. I've been the technician and I've been the salesperson and the manager. One, the technician's rushed. If you're writing something down, sometimes as a technician, you don't even know what the DOT is, man. I'll be honest, I don't know what the DOT is. I'll just put any number. Let's say we tell them how to do it. Sometimes their handwriting is not legible. It's just, they're so rushed. You're like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
I don't know what it means. And especially when we're talking about compliance, sometimes it is very important to keep DOTs in place, right?
Lots of recalls going on. If you don't collect that efficiently, this brings up tire safety, and that's a topic I wanted to ask about as well. When we look at the tire safety aspect, if you're not collecting that data and leveraging that data properly, using AI tools, using predictive analysis and dashboards, the safety becomes a real issue. Coming to the US and North America, I notice a lot more rubber on the roads from tire blowouts, and I think it's a big thing here. Maybe there's regulation and compliance issues tied into that as well. Do you see tire safety having a significant impact when we figure this puzzle out and implementing AI and data capture the right way?
I think, tire safety, it's extremely important, man. I think it has to be the number one.
With the amount of cars on the road, yeah.
Exactly, and especially, I had another podcast, with a guy who's a Toyo rep, but he, I've known him for several years, and he told me, we're not in the business of selling tires, we're in the business of selling safety.
I like that.
And so I kind of stuck, and I'm like, we don't sell tires, man. We sell safety, and as a tire dealer, as a responsible tire dealer, we should do whatever we can. The tire dealers should do anything they can to make sure their customer is safe. And companies like us, like the software companies, should do everything we can to make it easy for the tire dealer to make it safe for their customer, with software solutions or whatever the case is.
Because they're ultimately pouring millions and billions in some cases into developing the safest tire they can, big compounds and tread patterns and wear patterns. But ultimately, if that's not managed and monitored properly by service centers and by dealers, it kind of goes null, doesn't it?
It does. And you can only imagine, if you are a manufacturer and suddenly you released millions of tires out there, and let's just find, for whatever reason, knock on wood, we find out these tires are blowing out of the blue. That's very scary to know that, hey, there's a million tires out there and we don't even know who has these tires.
Yeah. It comes back to data management. If those DOT numbers are managed properly, that's an easy fix.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it raises a question. At least for me, it raises a question: should manufacturers keep tighter control of where these tires are being allocated? I think that would solve a lot of other,
less chasing
issues.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also understand that manufacturers, it's kind of hard to control that after they give tires to distributors.
Yeah, where they take them, they can't control the whole element, can
exactly. But again, I think if us, like companies like Anyline, Tirebase, focus on reaching out to these, specifically the smaller independent wholesalers or tire dealers, the bigger guys, they got their stuff kind of pretty nailed down, right? They got the funds, they got the teams, they got whatever they need to make sure it's done right. But at least in the U.S., as far as I think it's about 70% still independent of the market. So it's still the majority. If we want to look at it that way, the majority of the business here still is powered or fueled by independents. So we should really be helping the independent dealers, take more control of that.
It brings back to thought, like the power that AI can lend to these smaller dealers. If you think about the big guys, they have the resources, they have the 1,000 employees working on things. AI to me is very much 1,000 interns that are kind of there to do the work for you, there to do the hard work for you. If you give them proper instruction and you give it the prompt, for lack of a better word. Looking at the resources that these small and medium-sized operators have, do you see AI having the potential then to up their game and help them level up and compete on a bigger stage?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. I think the only reason why these independent dealers can't compete or can't, up their game, like you said, is because focus, right? If you're in operation, you're focused, man. You all you want to do is make sure your customer comes in, you get their tires installed, you get paid, you go buy more tires that you're selling, and your staff doesn't quit, arrive on. There's a lot of stuff that happens in operation. These guys don't have time to be thinking of anything else. So
they're trying to keep the door open.
Exactly. And so if we can help them say, hey, you know what, it's okay. We'll help you. We'll take care of the tech aspect. We'll make sure that it's done right. We'll make sure that your team understands it. It's easy to use. There's a lot of solutions out there. Sometimes they're not that easy to use. And there's a lot of technology out there that's modern and it just requires an integration to work. And so, again, I do believe that empowering independent tire dealers can let them compete with or set at least a level playing field against bigger players in the area.
And AI, to whatever degree that is, can be that enabler.
Absolutely.
It should be that enabler because you can't go and hire 1,000 staff if you're one of these companies.
If you think about it, a lot of these bigger companies are already using AI for either for reporting or for calls or for whatever the case might be. Sure. And so these independent dealers are already at a disadvantage if you look at it that way. So yes, of course, AI would be the element to put them on a level playing field. Or at least that should be our goal to saying, hey, these bigger guys are using it. We're going to help you guys use it as well. And again, AI plays
open some doors for them.
AI it's awesome, man. I use it every day.
I think a lot of us use it for many different ways. And I think, like you said, I think a lot of operators are using it in their business in some way or another. The gap seems to be getting that data plugged into it the right way so that you can have a proper vision of what's going on and help your predictive maintenance operators and help the cost and help the management of everything. When it comes to convenience and cost, this is the last point I wanted to bring up with you for the consumer point of view. Do you see these solutions being plugged in, helping that convenience? You mentioned the phone calls. I think that's a great convenience aspect. It helps control, brings in maybe more revenue because you're booking properly and you can manage your customers a different way. Do you see other ways that convenience and cost from a consumer point of view can be enabled?
Yeah, again, that's pretty an obvious question with Anyline. I think for us, again, we are very interested in integrating Anyline, for example, as part of our product offering, because I do think it enables that convenience aspect of collecting part of that tire data that's needed, right? Whether that be DOTs for compliance or safety, recalls, whatever. Whether that be tread, I think the tread aspect is actually very nice. I think you guys also have a use case with another company, Treads, or with Zach.
Yeah, with Zach, yeah.
Yeah, with how consumers could just like scan or
from a consumer app.
Yeah, exactly. Like pushing that to the consumer for people who don't necessarily know what the tire size is,
and making it user friendly. I think is what Zach's doing really well in that use case. I'm actually headed up to Utah after the show to shoot a video with him.
Okay, nice.
In the minus 10 and snow, and I still haven't got my head around that aspect yet. But yeah, it's exactly it. He's given the actual user, the actual driver, the ability to collect this data, and then they manage it on the back end. It's a great example of how it could be used for other operators.
Yep. So I think, again, just those would be my answers to that.
Yeah, really good. Looking to the future then, as a final point before I let you go, anything you're really excited about when we see AI coming into the picture with a lot of solutions? We're seeing operations develop. What are you excited about? Even walking the floor here, I'm sure you've spoken to a lot of different operators and tech providers. What are you excited about seeing in the next 5 to 10 years in this space?
I think, again, kind of keeping the topic of AI, right now for me, I think the phone summary data aspect, for me, that to me is very, very valuable. I think that's what I'm probably going to be doubling down or focusing a lot more. Again, and then continuing to raise the question, are we raising enough tire data, or how can we raise more tire data? How can we enable our shops, to collect more tire data? Whether that be, again, with Anyline and the integration, or, there's other machines as well that read some sort of, tire data as well. But again, I think that ultimately for the next 2 to 3 years, I think it's still going to be a question of how are we going to be collecting the data. Hopefully less than that, but then really after that, it's like, again, how can we make it, for who is this meaningful? We already know there's going to be different aspects of meaningfulness. For the consumer, it might be the safety recall. For the fleets, might be, less downtime, but I think, again, for me, it's interesting. I mean, AI is very powerful.
Yeah. If used correctly.
Yeah, but I think, again, for a shop owner, I just think to myself, like, what would be the perfect solution using AI? Well, it's like, well, if I could just have a button that would summarize this or that or whatever report I need to do, my financials,
everything.
Yeah, correct. Or simplicity in and saying, hey, go ahead and send me these marketing campaigns, and it just does it, for you, But yeah, I think it's going to take time.
But defining what we want seems to be the gap. Defining what is truly useful for each operator is the gap.
Yeah.
Because the tool can do it.
Correct.
And it can be built, or it exists. But
it exists
defining what you need is kind of the gap.
I think, for me, in my opinion, I think that's where I'm still stuck, right? Like, how can AI still play a more meaningful role? Or is there even a role for AI in the tire space, right?
Yeah.
Again, obviously we know it's powerful, but I think these are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves. And there's always great, brilliant minds, man, that come up with great, fantastic ways to utilize.
But it has to be right for that operator, not just for the sake of having it. It's not this just pile on all these tools and solutions. It has to be right for your operation, and identifying that seems to be the first step.
Yep, correct, 100%.
Awesome. Well, listen, I've enjoyed having the talk. We finally got to have this sit down after a long time of touching base, so I appreciate the time today. Any final notes that you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I would just say, obviously, I'm gonna, if you're an independent tire dealer, and if you're ever interested in finding more about, or you're struggling, I always say, missing, whatever, if you feel overwhelmed, or you don't have oftentimes a person to help you with the technology aspect or whatever, you're more than welcome to reach out. To me, like you mentioned, I do have a YouTube channel. That's truly my whole goal, is just to help people who don't know what to do, how to do it. I'm not sure if that's the right, I can't say I'm correct in everything, but I just explain what I've done and how I've done it. And, it seems to help.
Ultimately, there's different experiences that you can lend some knowledge to.
But I'm very grateful for you having me here. I really appreciate it. I'm happy that, we made it work.
Absolutely.
And, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And for everyone watching and listening to this episode of the Auto Tech Show, thank you for joining me. I'll definitely double up on what Fernando mentioned there. There'll be links below in the podcast notes with access to his content. Definitely check it out on LinkedIn. Lots of great videos on YouTube as well. We'll have links down there to Tirebase as well. Definitely check it out. Lots of resources, lots of education. Plenty of ways to get in touch and have those conversations. If you do want a sparring partner, if you do want someone to just bounce ideas off of, or you want some help, definitely reach out. I'll put my LinkedIn down there as well. If you have any comments or questions about this episode, please do reach out. It's great to have you guys touch base. You never know where that's going to lead on a future episode. But with that, here from Las Vegas at the SEMA show, we'll leave it right there on this episode and bring it to an end. Wish you all a fantastic day wherever in the world you may be, and I'll see you on an episode very soon. Bye for now.